going to start off this video by showing off what Konnected and SmartThing has done for my traditional dumb alarm. And then after that, for those interested, I'll talk about the DSC specific programming I did. We're going to arm the system from the panel. I'm going to hit stay. And on the SmartThings app, you will see the system says armed. And then I'll actually disarm it from here. And there you go. And that arm state does take a few seconds on the panel to change off. Meanwhile, I can open a door, and you'll see a door open here. This is my garage entry. And I'll shut it. And you'll see that both SmartThings and the alarm panel had their state change. I can even use Google Home to ask about what's open or command it. I have a DSC PowerSeries PC1616, but the board and program is more or less the same for all the PowerSeries, such as the 1832 and 1864. I'm a fan of wired, reliable systems. I didn't want to migrate to a wireless smart home kit. I'd considered buying a eyes-on Invisalink and writing my own device handler for SmartThings to talk over IP, but I've had too many projects in the queue and was thrilled to finally see that Konnected came out with this product, which does an even better job of what I was going to do. I would not have been able to figure this out nearly as quickly had Nate from Konnected not already posted a video using a DSC alarm as an example. It gave me a lot of confidence to dive into this, so I'm just trying to share a bit more for folks if they're on the fence. Alright, so here's SmartThings. You can see that I've got my all of my sensors that are connected into my alarm panel are on my SmartThings now. I've got motion detectors, doors, windows, and then I also have some statuses, my alarm siren when open there, and also the armed state down there. It says armed when open, and it's currently closed, which means that my system is not armed. And then I have a push button to arm and disarm the system remotely. Alright, so how did all of that work? They're all getting powered off of these little devices here, which are these Konnecteds, and you can see these orange lights are lit up because those are this has a 6-zone input with 6 lights. When the circuit's closed, they're lit up. When its circuit's open, they are off. You can see I have some open circuits there, and these lines just tap into my panel's existing zones here, and it draws power off the auxiliary output of the panel, which is super convenient, especially because even though it's got a battery backup for the panel, I have a pretty hefty APC battery backup in my network surveillance cabinet over there for the alarm, so this system should never ever go down. Wiring the Konnected up is very simple. Like I said, you just tap into the zones, plug them into ports on the Konnected. There are these potentiometers down here where you can adjust the level for what's going to trigger it to sense it is open or shut. So it should work with a number of systems configurations out there. You'll also periodically see a blue light blink in here, which is the Wi-Fi. This second board up here is the Wi-Fi board, and that blinks blue when it sends a signal to SmartThings. There's some other cool things that can be done with this. There are these programmable outputs on the DSC, and you can set those to do different things from an alarm keypad. In my case, I had program 1 set to signal when the siren's going off, which you can see over here as the alarm siren when open. And then the second one I have set to the arm state, which you can see down here as armed when open. And those wires are just come off of there and down into another zone input on the Konnected, just like any other open-close sensor. I didn't like how the original installer, who, by the way, didn't want to tell me their installer code, they said they use it for all their customers and they'd have to come charge me $95 to change it. So yeah, no thanks. I decided to guess. It only took me 5 since they decided to use their address. Very secure. Anyway, the original installer wired up my doors to one zone and all my windows to another. You can see this huge bundle here are windows, and I don't care too much about windows. They are broken up between upstairs and down, but I didn't want my doors grouped. So I wound up getting a PC5108 8-zone expansion module, which is this extra module that you see over here. It was fairly easy to wire in. You power off your system, you wire it into the same red, black, yellow, green keypad outputs. Those just go into the expander module. You need to short the tamper. That's down here. The instruction manual does tell you how to do all of this. It's just you actually need to read the manual and follow the instructions. Once you power your system back on, again, the instructions will tell you to enter installer mode and enter programming section 902, which has the system detect devices to supervise. That let me move a bunch of my doors separately over to here. It also prompted me to buy a second Konnected. Alright, the last step for my wiring was remote arming. The DSC has a key switch option, which can be triggered by another open-close event on a configured zone. I chose zone 4 of the expansion module right here, which you can see wired up into this relay, and that just sends another open-close momentary switch event, which the relay is comes with the Konnected kit and is just connected into the relay output down here on the board. Originally I was using a 5.6 kilo ohm resistor because normally you do have end of line resistors on an alarm system, but another fail on my installer, they did not use those, so it took me a while to figure out why it wasn't working. Eventually I went and looked at how my system was configured and realized that it was set for just normally closed circuits, no resistors. So once I figured that out, it was easy, just direct wire it into the relay, and then when I push the ARM button on my SmartThings, you can see that the system will, the relay will trigger, and then you'll see the lights down here on this Konnected panel change. I'm going to push the button, and there you saw the blue light blink, and then you saw that the ARM state came on as well with another blink, and then I'm going to disarm the system, and there's the relay triggered it again, and you'll see in a few seconds that this ARM light goes out. The panel actually takes a few seconds to go into a disarmed state. Alright, so that's just a quick overview of how you can turn a dumb alarm into a smart system thanks to Konnected. I'm going to show a bit about programming a PowerSeries now. You're going to want to start off by getting the installer manual, not the user manual. Chapter 3.3 and Chapter 4 goes into programming, covering each section, which is identified by a 3-digit number, such as 001, which is the zone definition section in this case. I'm not an expert at this. My system was pretty simple. Some folks might have a complex system and fire detectors, CO sensors. You want to make sure that you don't mess any of that existing configuration up, because you are going to have to modify zones and programmable outputs. So that means that you really should go through every section in your panel to record how it's configured currently. So depending on your keypad, you'll have different ways of reading that configuration. First, you need to enter installer mode by pressing *8. And then you're going to enter your installer code, which you're going to need to know. You're not going to see mine. Then you get this red ARM signal here that tells you that it's awaiting a section number. That's a 3-digit code, and we can enter any section to program. So let's just use the zone definitions as the first, which is 001, and we're now in the zone definitions. So this is zones 1 through 16. Each zone is a 2-digit code that tells it what kind of zone it is, like a delay exit door kind of thing, or an instant alarm, or a stay away interior, and we want to find out what those codes are. Now, anytime you're in a programming section, if you start hitting numbers on the keypad, you will change the program. But the program section also tells you the current values that are configured. And it doesn't look like there's anything here because this first digit is a 0. It's kind of non-intuitive. But you push the scroll arrows here, you press over, now you see a 1. So we had a 0 and a 1. Those are the numbers for the first zone. Then second zone, 0 and a 1. And now the third zone is a 0 and a 1 and a 2. Now, these numbers aren't exact numbers. You need to write these down because you're going to have to go back to the installer manual and look up what that means. A 1 and a 2 actually means 3. This is done because some panels have even less display capability. They might only have like 4 lights for zones 1 through 4, so they have to code the numbers in that way. So if we keep going, you'll see a 0 and a 1 and a 2 and a 0 and a 1 and a 3, and the 1 and a 3 is actually a 5, which translates to like a motion detector is common. If you're done, you can enter pound, and that exits think of pound as like the back key. It stepped us up one level out of the zone definition section, and now we're back at the installer menu basically, and we could enter any other section right now. So we could enter, say, section 101. Now, this type of section is the options. It's a toggle option section. And this 101 is the section for Zone 1's options. And so it has options 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, and 7 set. 5 is not set, and 8 is not set. Some sections have more values that you can switch to, and the manual will tell you how to get to those. Toggling one and on and off, you could just push it like that and it goes off, and push it and it goes back on. If I wanted to turn 5 on, there it is, now it's off. And then you press pound and you go back, and we're back at our installer menu, and if we want to exit that altogether, we push pound again. So you can record your whole system's configuration. Maybe one more I should show you is the programmable outputs is section 009. And again, you don't see anything up here. It's a 0 and then it's a 1. So that's program 1 is 0, 1, and program 2 is 0, 1, and 3, which is a 5. So, and that's the end. We reach the end. If you reach the end of a programming section, it bumps you back out of that section, and this ARM key lets you know that you bumped out of the programming area, back to the installer menu. So now we know that our 2 programmable outputs were set at 1 and 1 and 3, which is a 5. And we could go back to the menu, or the installer manual, and look up what those are. We're going to exit programming. We'll go look at the installer menu. Alright, so we're in section 3 of our installer menu. And down here it kind of tells you about the armed light on, as I mentioned, panels waiting for the 3-digit section number, and once you put that in, the ready light will go on and it's waiting for data. The next section that's important is understanding those numeric codes that I was talking about, and we mentioned how we saw a 1 and a 2. Well, that means zone 1 and zone 2 were lit. In that case, that translates to a 3. And in the case where we saw zone 1 and zone 3 lit, 1 and 3, whoops, that translates to a 5. And so this is how you go figure out what those status values map to. And then once you understand that, then you can zoom out and get into the zone programming. So section 001, as I said, are your zone definitions. Section 002 would be zone definitions for zones 17 through 32, and then 32 through, I don't want to do math, 48 or something like that, and then 64. But so 00 disables the zone, 01 is your delay 1. Another common one that we saw on my panel was the 03 for the instant, and 05 for the interior stay away. And for our momentary key switch that remotely arms and disarms, we have number 22, which I had programmed. We didn't get that far looking at my values. Then we go through different sections. You can see the installer code, you could set that, and then 009 is where you set the PGM outputs. and it tells you that 09 is going to give you 009 is going to give you PGM1 and PGM2 as we saw, and then if you went and installed a expansion module, which I have, you get PGMs 3 through 10 on section 010, and these are the values for those. So I believe we saw that program 1 for us was set to 01, which is fire and burglar, which is the siren basically, and or the bell. And then program 2 for me was set to 05, which is the armed status, which lets me know if the panel's armed. There's also some other valuable statuses like ready status, and on the next page there's a I think it's like 17 and 18 are the armed status for away and stay. Section 013 are option codes. Basically all these sections from like 13 to 23 are system options. There's 8 options in each section, and so here you can see that option 1, zones require normally closed loops, or off, zones require end-of-line resistors as determined by option 2, which would be either single or double. Now this is where you can find out if your system's configured to be using resistors or not. We'll go back and look at the panel and show this really quick. Alright, installer mode, star 8, put in your code. Alright, we're now in a program section. We want to go into section 013, and we now see that we have 1, 3, 5, 6, and 7 are set. 1 we know was about whether it's using end-of-line resistors or not. If it's on, it means that it's not. We can go back out of this. So you can see that 1 was on, which means that it's not using resistors. The rest of these options you can read through. Some of them might make sense, some of them might not. You probably don't need to change them. I will point out that I believe it is section 23, which is the 10th system option code section. If you look at option 8, key switches will always arm in away mode, or if it's off, key switches will arm in away mode if entry-exit zone is violated during exit delay. Meaning that if you hook your SmartThings and connect it up to remotely disarm the system, which is that key switch, and you arm your system and then you leave through a door, it's going to arm in away mode. But if you stay in your house, like at night, to arm your system, it'll go into stay mode, which is pretty handy. So you want that flag off, which is by default the way it's set. Alright, so I mentioned that making a spreadsheet or writing down your information is really going to make programming simpler. The first thing I did was wrote down all of my zones and what they were connected to. And then these columns over here are the connected board and the connected ports that are connected up to the panel on those. And so you can see I've got PGMs are connected to my connected as well, and then just same information but a different view to show from a connected perspective what it's hooked up into. But this is the view you want if you're going to program your alarm panel. And so I've kind of grouped this into these headers here. The order doesn't necessarily matter. Sometimes it does. You really do want to read your manual, but here's your section 009, how to program your PGMs. So we enter star 8, we enter section 009, and then the first thing they want entered is 01 for program 1, and then 05 for program 2, or my two values to get the bell and arm status respectively. Then we hit pound and we're out of that section. We could go in here and program others, and then we could go disable the keypad lockout just because I didn't want to lock myself out. And then here's your zone programming, and so we enter star 8, we enter our installer code, and then we enter 001, and then we're just going to go right down this list and enter 01, 01, 03, 03. And I'll go show the first couple ones of those just as an example. Alright, installer mode, and then we put in our code, and then we're going to go into zone definitions. Alright, first zone, and then second zone, and my third zone was a 03. Alright, and I'm just going to stop because I don't remember them all off the top of my head. So we hit pound, we're back out to our section menu, and if we wanted to see our what we did, we could go back in and enter that menu and view them, but we know what we did. Alright, so that's just a quick overview of how you can turn a dumb alarm into a smart system thanks to Konnected.